Jai Baba. This first small batch of poems that I'm going to read occurred during an unusual state that I ended up being in for a length of time. So I'm going to mention a few things about that state as a preface to the poetry. February 2001, I was in a conscious, prayerful state. I couldn't maintain what had begun on Amartithi in 2001 in India, and by 3.5 months later, it was all a memory, having gradually lessened after peaking in early to mid-February 2001. Had it not dissipated gradually, I could not have withstood living without it, I feel. The whole scenario was a gift from Baba. And here's something of a description that I wrote someone in an email at the time. It's been kind of an in the now blissful agony at the gross plane level, though definitely different from ordinary experience. An experience of intensified longing and prayer to and for, and resultantly in a certain way, communion with Him, with the focal point being the samadhi. A deep sense of silence permeates, yet there is the cruel blessing of extreme restlessness that I cannot live without. A strong possession of honesty is present. There is also an element of disorientation and some fear, but not enough to interfere, not just of what is going on, but fear of it ceasing to continue. There is a witnessing of internal change. Though I am beside myself with unattainable reaching, it is pleasing. Though I am not so much in this state now, it would wax and wane. Somehow or other, I have to write about it in the present tense. Actually, I don't call it an experience or state, and I'm not into trying to experience anything or advance my consciousness, nor be it in any state whatsoever. It is only about being with my beloved, period. Likewise, as you might imagine, these sharings, poems and whatnot, are not enhanced retellings. They are not romanticized tales cleverly phrased. They are not cute word games reflecting some dream state that the ego delights in revealing. They are more akin to what is simply revealed when your skin is ripped off in the love fire of devotion. So, here's one of them. It's called Fish. Fish out of water, fish in the sea, fish hooked and flailing, that fish is me. Fish scaled and seasoned, fish now not free, fish in pot boiling, mercilessly. Fish still is jumping, fish is not dead, fish swimming safely to where he's led. Now, Baba said, when there is real longing to be united with God, then one becomes like a fish out of water. And he said, when love is given, the lover neither lives nor dies. He is like a fish out of water. But he also said, love for me expects much more than a fish out of water. So I don't know, I was clear that this state that Baba gave me temporarily was a gift from him and that I certainly had not earned it. So I'll read a few more from this time period. This one's called Sweet Nothing. A number of these were short. I awoke this AM in a reverie of subtle understanding, now gone, not the understanding. And this one's called C'est vrai, positively. C'est vrai, of course, in French means this is true. While taking my body for a walk this pleasant morning, daffodils right in front of me, far away. During this period, at least for a week or two, I would pass these daffodils, and they didn't look like daffodils. I can't explain it. But Baba did say, without necessarily being consciously advanced, the aspirant may have, from time to time, glimpses of the reflections of inner sights. So I imagine that's sort of what was happening. I feel there can be a real danger in being placed in altered states, because one can get an attachment to it and think it's more than what is actually. They might think it's something more than a glimpse, but really it's necessary to come back and experience one's karma in the world and be one's rather mundane, gross level self until the one real experience happens, and that's realizing God. And of course we leave that in Baba's hands. This one's called Tomorrowland, also written during this state. Today has become tomorrow, and the old now is yesterday. What used to be my present has now been swept away. This one's called Gift of the Sea, a new me. Gift of the seas been given to me. Once I was blind, now there's nothing to see. And then I have a footnote. I see gross nothing. Speaking of having, quote, experiences or even altered states of consciousness, Mani once said to those who experienced such love at the 69 darshan, she wrote, "Parched tree beds thirsting for water, you were filled with his grace rain and sparkled in the sunshine of his darshan. And your heart said in wonder and in fear, this cannot be true, oh, will it last? On the surface, it cannot last, if it is to be lasting. The water is for the roots. It must soak deep into the earth to reach the heart of the tree, for its beauty is to be made known to all men by the strength of its limbs and the richness of its leaves, by the fragrance of its flowers and the sweetness of its fruits. For this the divine gardener prepares the beds. He labors to make the hardened earth receptive, hoeing it thoroughly with the prongs of his compassion. It hurts at the time and we cry out in pain, but he suffers it for our sakes. He allows us to endure it in the knowledge that nothing endures except his love." Okay, here's some more. First, a quote from Baba. When you go mad for me, really mad, not in the worldly sense, you find me. Only those who go mad with love for me find me. This one is untitled. Though still, I writhe in changes, moment to moment, not ceasing over time, yet catch my new aloneness in unrestricted rhyme. This one is called Silence Speaks. This was all brought about, as I think I hinted at before, from Amartithi while I was in India in 2001, but it didn't really kick in full force until maybe a couple of days after I returned. Silence speaks. Today I awoke to Amartithi silence, remembrance of his silent working through us, in him, a love shock reawakening. In return, 1,000 thank yous escape, which none can see, and only you, capital Y, can hear. This one's called More Than Okay. I am caught in the wind, in the air of despair. I am grasping thin air as I reach for your stare. And you gave your okay to my painful decay as I give you my all at the door of your hall. This one's called Chance. The more you know, the less you need, a scary proposition for anyone who takes the plunge and loses his position. Once turned around, the very ground beneath the feet you stand on is swept away, and you must sway in crazy winds not planned on. Your only chance is that you dance to every tune he whistles. Then good and bad, relieved and sad, will pass you by like missiles. But know for sure this opened door that calls the desperate lover is not for gain. You will be slain, no chance to run for cover. One way I would describe the experience too was it was blissful agony. And this one is called Lifeline. The tomb is my lifeline. I cannot let go. There now is no timeline or need for world show. He's loosened my grip and there's no turning back. The tomb is my lifeline. It cuts me no slack. This one is called Q&A. In other words, question and answer. Question, what have I done? Answer, extended longing beyond my limits. Now the terrible price is being paid. Coda, every prize has its price. Every prize has its price. Every prize has its price. And this one is called Crazy in Love. Crazy in love. And the first line keeps repeating. By the way, during this time period, I wrote 14 poems in 2 days. I think it was 16 in 4 days. This one was called Death Row. Tell me where to go. Tell me what to do. Show me how to walk. Take me there to you. Be inside my brain. Stab me in the heart. I must feel your pain to express your art. I must always die with each brutal drawl if this living lie is to have its fall. Give me your swift sword. Let me take the blows so that I can live due to these death throes. Reminds me of the prayer that Erich once said was his favorite of the prayers Baba gave. I am not the body, I am not the mind, I am not this, I am not that, I am nothing but a living lie of that truth that is me. And until the lie is dead, the truth cannot be. So Erich would call glimpses glimmers. This is a favorite of mine during this period. It's called Out, Out, Damn Spot. Spot or stain, take your pick. And as Erich so well used to put it, Erich used to say about himself, I am nothing but a stain upon the earth. And this poem was triggered by my eating some prasad from Amartithi 2001 that I brought back. I'm living Amartithi, relaxing in a spell, remembrance of his coming, so all is going well. There is no matter pressing, just energy released, which means the heart is thriving, with Maya now deceased. So mystical his Leela, his death has given birth to those who die within him to manifest true worth. Now everything is roses, with thorns to prick my heart. How else could I die for him? How else this brand new start? Come one and all to see him. Go in to where you're not. Remove yourself to be him. Remove that self-sown spot. So maybe that gives a hint of why I felt I couldn't bear coming back to the mundane world. But Baba knows best, that's for sure. And now all these years later, I've accepted it and gotten some better understanding. This was also written during that period. It's called Zombie Man Speaks. Ook, ack, og, my mind is all agog. Hoo, ha, wee, my heart is truly free. And this is the last one I'm reading from that time period. It's called Baba Is. Baba is not visible. Baba is not invisible. Baba is indivisible. Baba is visible. Baba is invisible. Baba is indivisible. Baba is. By the way, that batch that I wrote while I was in that altered state, most of them I've only shared with one or two people before, and that was from 21 years ago. So this is a different time period now, and this poem is called Absolution, and I looked it up in the dictionary recently. Absolution means the act of resolving or a remission of sins. Got plenty of those. I'm going to read the notes to the poem as an introduction. I have trouble reading my own writing, so bear with me. On occasion, over a several months period, I have found myself spontaneously calling out to Baba from a place deep within, I need you absolutely. Then one night, just before retiring, when those words sprang forth again, they were instantly followed by the presentation before my mind's eye of the word absolution. It was immediately apparent that I was being given both the first line and the title of a new poem. However, I did not realize until later, checking, that 4 of my last 5 poems have come to me in this fashion. The title and first line one day, and the entire rest of the poem revealed later on. Anyway, that night I jotted down the title and opening line just before going to bed. On the following morning, upon awaking, the poem began to flow in full measure. I stopped the process briefly for breakfast, but skipped lunch to allow the rhythm of its words to stream in uninterrupted, and the poem was complete by dinner time. By this time, I too was feeling a certain sense of completeness, and with this feeling and little appetite for the normal things of the world, including food. I have only him to thank for the complete experience of this poem and its enveloping reverie before necessarily returning to the envelope of this world. And I thank him for leaving the envelope open. Absolution. I need you absolutely on each and every day, for you are my true Savior in each and every way. How else would I be able to cope with all this mess I've spilled into this lifetime from lifetimes of distress? I cling like mud to your feet. You have not shook me loose. And so where'er you're going, you take your mud caboose. In time, this crud will dry out and return into dust, as heavy karma lightens and worry turns to trust. Meanwhile, I make new mud pies to give the one most pure and beg his tender mercy to open up the door. Though I am undeserving, he's led me to doorstep. Amazing that he's granted this boon to such a schlep. So therefore it behooves me to keep my full head bowed and take whatever's coming as pearls that he's endowed. For though in filth I've wallowed, he's stepped into my life and given me his presence, though mine has been most rife. Yes, through it all, his fragrance is subtly around and calls me from the mire in which my soul is bound. And as I rise to follow the one who's heaven sent, the veils of dirt that dry up have made me more hell-bent to see that I must give up the last speck of myself so that I may uncover true purity itself. Yet on one's own it's hopeless. One cannot raise a hand to wash away the deep grime or dry it into sand. Thank God for the solution, to give it all to him, the master of ablution, who goes out on a limb. He reaches out and drags us away from where we're stuck, that treacherous illusion, our self-created muck. Then naked there before him, though stinking head to foot, with his own hands he bathes us, removing all our soot. How tenderly he nurses each unhealed wound within, and dresses each with mercy, relieving all one's sin. Eventually that time comes for each and every one to give up all resistance and face the burning sun. The lover who's then dumbstruck beholds the open gate and meets the gaze of Mayhair, who ends the lover's wait. For now, or then, the lover swooning is caught with perfect grace, dissolving all life's troubles in one divine embrace. That last poem I just read, Absolution, reminds me, I'll just give the very short version of the story that Erich used to tell about the time he was with Baba, who could not swim, mind you, in a dugout canoe going across a brackish backwater, and some boys were playing and they playfully tipped over the canoe. And Erich, they went into the water. Erich grabbed Baba with one arm, grabbed the satchel with Baba's things in the other arm, and with the force of his legs, swam to shore, and then left Baba alone and ran back to get him some clean clothes. Baba was very rarely left alone. And Baba, in thankfulness, he said, just as you pulled me out of the muck, this brackish, muckish backwater today, one day I will pull you out of the muck of illusion, which had a great bearing on Erich. This next poem is called Cross My Heart. And I'm going to read the notes to Cross My Heart first. And the notes to the poem were written years after the poem. As children, in our family, we were taught how to pray by bending our arms and folding our hands in front of our chests in that typical prayerful pose. This was the ritual. We would also pledge our word about this or that by saying, I cross my heart and hope to die. It was a game, really. From this early start, nothing manifested. It was form without substance, for we were children. But at age 28 in 1975, in a state of spiritual desperation, but also a state of keen anticipation, I revived this long ago abandoned posture of prayer, now full of faith and intention, and called out to God to come to me. And that he did, as not much later I became his lover, such as I am. But that's another story. 11 years later, in 1986, I was saying goodbye to Mara for what was to be the very last time. She crossed her arms over her heart, looked strongly into my eyes and implored, "Will you take Baba with you?" She repeated this, "Will you take Baba with you?" A third time, "Will you take Baba with you?" while maintaining this heart-crossed pose. And each time I replied, "Yes, Mara, yes, Mara, yes, Mara." While at the same time I automatically, naturally assumed the same pose that she had. On later darshans inside Baba's Samadhi, I found myself unconsciously assuming this same posture. In hindsight, I feel that I had received a love infusion from Baba via his beloved, one of his countless precious gifts that reveal themselves to us over time. So I feel this gift that Mara gave me was like a natural training aid from his beloved for the ability to increasingly cry out silently from the heart to Baba. I also felt that going like this, it's like Baba is your baby, rocking it. It's also like a cross. So cross my heart. And even though that experience with Mara was in 1986, the poem wasn't written till 1996. I cross my heart and hope to die in love that's never ending. But at the start I strove to fly with straightened wings unbending. Now it's my part just to rely on wing and a prayer God sending. For thou who art, let me come nigh through his beloved's tendering. Thy counterpart, thy counterpart, with arms bent high, across her heart was rendering what you, capital Y, impart to those who sigh for heaven's God descending. So now my heart will always lie in knowing arms attending, for now my heart knows how to cry in silent tears ascending. Okay, this one is called By the Numbers. Most of it was completed in 1994, and then the rest of it came in 1997. It's got what I consider one of the better introductions, but it's kind of lengthy, and so I'm going to skip that and just read the poem. You might call it an arithmetical poem. By the Numbers. I wouldn't take no for an answer, yet couldn't say yes through and through. Ambivalence spread like a cancer. I cried, what's a sick man to do? Come soon, or I'll live on forever. Come now, or I'll die on the vine. I can't face the torture of never, yet can't accept victory whine. But as I've surrendered my whining, and silently dropped all I could, the worries of life are declining, uplifting my soul, knock on wood. For since I struck out on this venture to capture the highest of high, I've given my life to indenture, abandoned my heart to a sigh. For all that I have is just dreaming, yet all that I am is your slave. And although my mind is still scheming, my body has learned to behave. Hence now I'm becoming a fraction of something I thought I once was, since loving results in subtraction and adds up as nothing else does. He multiplies all of one's troubles and then divides every last hope. So you'll either rise on the double or fall off your slippery slope. The true path results in a zero. All others mean catastrophe. Decisions are there for the hero, but what about little old me? Ignoring the odds I have gambled, the dice of my life I have hurled, because this is what you've preambled for those who'd score naught in the world. I rolled to your feet in a tizzy, then onto your cloak I was spun, and though your high stakes made me dizzy, I've stayed on to burn with the sun. This burning leads up to salvation, the numbering of the last days, when branded with this revelation, to literally do as he says. Please try out this new math attrition, the formula to his front door. Give up all your countless addition and follow his lead evermore. This simple equation will equal the sum of whatever you've got and cancel your need for a sequel by giving you what you have not. In short, we must die by obeying. That's how this rare numbers game's played. First long just to hear what he's saying, then follow the steps that he's made. Put one foot in front of the other, let nothing subtract from your goal. Then everything that you discover eliminates all but the soul. The time to begin is not later. The time to begin is right now. The time to begin is not later. The time to begin is right now. I feel I had to write out the poem as it came to me, but some of it's, I don't feel, well, I know I haven't lived up to. Okay. The last few poems that I read online, several of them were from a period when I was in an altered state of consciousness. And I finished up with those that I'm going to record, but there's one little couplet that I came up with, not a poem, but it was how I felt at the time, having slipped back into the gross world in a more concretized way. And the statement I made was, I don't like the stupid world. I like the world in which I was stupefied. So anyway, be as it may. So during that pilgrimage in 2001, as the Mandali would sometimes do, I was given a little treasure, which was a button, a pin of Baba's face that he had touched. And it was given to me by a goer, and she said it was from Mani, who had passed on a few years before. So a poem came to me, and I wrote goer, and in the form of a letter started out with the poem. And I'll read that, the poetic part and the prose part. It's called Dear Goer. I'm so deeply touched by the button he touched, oh God, which came from dear Mani through her sister Irani, Prasad. I treasure this treasure that in his sweet pleasure he gave. His face doth define bliss and gently refines this crude slave. So thank you, dear Goer. Without him I'm nowhere. Amen. And then I continued in prose in my letter to Goer. I began writing on 14th February, Valentine's Day. What a perfect excuse to say Happy Valentine's Day to all my Merazad sweethearts on the women's side. And as I write now, it's 25th February. So happy birthday to one and all, and to the one in all. And then there's another section that I'll skip. And I ended it with love to you and all there. Divine beloved Meher Baba Ki Jai. In his debt and in his constant care, Philip. So, this next one, by the way, when I recorded poems from my published book, Roses, they were all in a certain order. That has not been the case with these poems from my unpublished work, Fragrance. In other words, it's not the case with the poems from 1989 up to the present. This one happens to be from Silence Day 2018, and it's called The Living Word. His silence speaks without a sound, internally forever, but only those with soundproof ears can weave these facts together. All others listen with the mind, a noisy den too clever. They miss the living word he is, and otherwise endeavor to know him through the intellect, to which the heart says never. The only way to hear him speak is from mind's path to sever, allowing heart, not headstrong will, to pull the God voice lever. Just give him everything you've got, the good, the bad, whatever, but specially all love and praise, establishing love's tether, and thereby linking you to him, available forever. And I have a couple of notes to the poem. One is something that Catherine Cox told me that Eric said that I liked quite a bit. And apparently he said, "The mind is very odd, but the heart is unique." And the other is a quote, and people who have been to Mondley Hall have seen it. And where Eric used to sit, it was pretty much up above him. And he would sometimes point to it when people asked, has Baba broken his silence? Anyway, the quote from Baba is, "When the word of my love breaks out of its silence and speaks in your hearts, telling you who I really am, you will know that that is the real word you have always been longing to hear." Of course, all this is open to interpretation. Okay. Let's see. This is a short one. It's called Here and There, Life as I Know It. Here meaning back in the West, and there meaning Mehrabad, Merazad. Here is where I exist. There is where I live. Here is where I survive. There is where I thrive. Here I'm half dead. There I'm all alive. This one is from Silence Day 1996. It turns out that sometimes on Silence Days, I would get batches of like 3 poems. That happened maybe 3 or 4 times, I don't know. Hasn't happened in a long time. So it's called Who's Driven? In the silence of the heart, beyond all matter, reigns the primal thou who art, atop a hidden ladder. How to be a bullseye dart and pierce the veils of chatter. How to lovingly rechart all words that fault and flatter. Playing deaf and dumb is smart. How else can weak men shatter that from which we must depart, the world of inane patter? Offer him the perfect tart to surely end the clatter. Serve it to him a la carte without self-serving blather. What a love feast then can start, starved pilgrim all a tatter, giving what he's kept apart, his head upon a platter. The epilogue is, silent giving means real living for the one who loses. All the wanting and the hunting, false self always chooses. Such an answer for the cancer of the world we live in brings the treasure beyond pleasure to the one who's driven. And about this head on a platter being the perfect art to give him, there's a quote from Baba. Baba said, "Only one who can dare to love me can love me as I ought to be loved." To love me really would mean one has to cut off his head, place it on his palm, and offer it to me. Cutting not in the sense of chopping it off, that's easy. Head means all your thoughts and desires, everything. Bringing them to me means placing them at my feet. Then you begin to love me. So what usually happens with these poems when they come to me is I find out later, oftentimes, or remember later on, these quotes from Baba that fit right in. Only occasionally am I reading those quotes, but I have notes to pretty much every poem. Sneak preview. He gave me a taste of reality, right here in the midst of duality. His love seeping into this gross plane life, transforming it into a beauteous life. One swimming in love oh so weightlessly, one floating on air just so breathlessly. And though this was only a harbinger, its priceless effect is a lingerer. Thank God, since I'm now back in old life mode and struggling again with my karmic load. In closing, that opening he gave to me, though only a glimpse of what is to be, is worth all the weight of what has to be, until I can one day be truly free, until I will one day be truly free. This poem, which began to come to me as I lay in bed just after awaking on the morning of January 11th, 2015, refers to the experience, the taste, the glimpse, the glimmer, the state of consciousness, the opening that Baba gave me on my recently completed 20th pilgrimage to his feet, and which culminated on my day of departure from Mehrabad. Now I'm back here in misunderstand land, struggling to reintegrate and no longer swimming in that love. And yet there is that living memory in the midst of this Maya land in which I must carry on. It's coming back to me now, the experience. Yeah. This one is called Silence Day Psalm. And let's see. It's from Silence Day 2014. Prelude. Thanks to Baba, we have God. Everything moves by his nod. Now the poem proper. Words are stilled on this your day, as your silence has its say. Those who listen in this calm give birth to a wordless psalm, singing silent notes on fire that our speechless hearts inspire. Only those who try this hear what you whisper in one's ear. Now few give back silent praise, honoring your day of days. But you've told us in due time, all will hold this day sublime. Lesson learned, the world will pause, lose its voice and join your cause. Loving without fan or fare, living with the utmost care. Praise to Baba, silent King. With our lips sealed, hear us sing. So that comment about the world coming around to Silence Day, Mark Murray once asked Phyllis Frederick, is there anything that Baba said to you that isn't in the literature that you happen to recall? And she said, yes, one day the whole world will keep silence on Silence Day. Now what that means, who knows? It might mean Mahapralaya. It could mean, anyway, that's the rest of the story. Okay, this one is called Fired Up, or To Hell With It. I lost everything in a fire, created by self-sown desire. Entanglement cost me my head, and saw that my heart was misled. Those flames burned out half of my wiring. What's left still experiences backfiring. Yet through all this deadly tough sledding, I know what direction I'm heading. My ego's no match for hellfire. To ashes is what I aspire. And when that hot beast's fully fed, my real self shall rise from the dead. And that reminds me of a line from one of Francis Brabazon's books. It is not until the heart has been broken many times and the debris by time swept away that spirit can live comfortably. I'm going to read more of that little quote just on a whim from Francis Brabazon. It's from Singing Threshold, and it's about the aging process and the beauty of the aging process. I mean, it's easy to harp on the hard parts, the health, etc. Anyway, this is a play that Francis wrote, and this is a section of it. There's a man named Frank, and he asks his wife, Emmy, "Do you want youth back again?" And Emmy says, "Why should I want youth back again when every day with you is startlingly young? Yes, we were thistle on a spring wind once. Then we took root and grew our own life. Now in me, this life puts out ever more green shoots to the sun. This is the best time of life for those who love, when time and love has mellowed them in their love, smoothing the contours of their lives in rich design, creasing their features with the kindly brush of character, deepening their eyes to pools of reflecting light, hollowing their ears to pure receptiveness of each other's mood. For it is not until youth with its frenzy is past that beauty can bloom. It is not until the heart has been broken many times and the debris by time swept away that spirit, capital S, can live comfortably and express itself in quiet freedom of movement. Age is not cruel, but infinitely beautiful." Okay, this one is called Watershed Event from January 2016. I gave what I could, but not what I should. Still he carries me toward where I must be. Till then the game goes through life and death throes that end with the start of shedding my part, to instead live in God through falsehood jihad, in fiery passing to life everlasting. Looks like we just got a couple more here for today. This is called To You, with a capital Y, meaning Baba, small t for two. I kissed those others' lips then, a young, naive whatever. It seems a world away now. This life is so much better. Yet from that gross world love life, a latent mental tether reminds I'm not my true self. There's still much more to weather. But now it's only your feet with kisses I would smother, as on your pathless pathway I countenance no other. And from this new love framework, still fastened to old clutter, my heart lets loose its soul prayer, which here below I utter. O God, be with me always. as I attempt to tender all that I owe to you, dear, in absolute surrender. And this one, let's see, this is from 2016, written over 2 days. It's called A Know-Nothing Poem. I thought I knew a few things, but Christ, what did I know? For now I see with hindsight a bogus picture show, one that convinces mankind to want but not to know, a mighty joke that dams up the blessings that would flow. And there's no way to laugh off the price one pays, ho ho. So what to do's the question, the answer, don't you know, is seeing through illusion and telling it, no, no. But this can only happen with help from Maya's foe, reality incarnate, the one who's in the know. He guides compliant lovers who know they do not know. Submission then to Baba assures that he'll bestow that love beyond all knowing. There's nothing else to know.